This episode is sponsored by the Freedom Builder System. For just $57 a month, you can get my custom Biz Builder AI, plus membership in the Freedom Builder community. Think of it as having me, your personal business coach and corporate escape Sherpa, right in your pocket 24/7. Biz Builder AI is your business building tool with 5 Sherpas in one powerful tool. It's a coach in AI form that helps you choose the right idea, create offers, build your financial runway, and market yourself without the cringe. And the Freedom Builder membership gives you the training, community, and accountability to actually follow through. So you're never doing this alone. Think of it as clarity, tools, and support all in one for less than the cost of a dinner out and a fraction of what you'd spend on private coaching. Check the show notes for the link, and let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to the Gen X Remix, Midlife Laughs and Next Acts. I'm your host, Tabatha Jones, the corporate escape Sherpa and career advancement and leadership coach. Today's remix is all about breaking out of the boxes, the ones built by expectations, roles, and rules that were never really ours to begin with. Our guest, Betsy Pepine, knows this journey well. Betsy is a best-selling author, speaker, and real estate mogul who left the safe path behind to build a business and a life that actually fits. In her book, Breaking Boxes, she shares how she went from feeling compressed and confined to fully expanded and aligned. If you've ever questioned whether you have the right to want more, or if you've stayed stuck because it all looks good on paper, this one's going to hit home. So let's dive into Betsy's remix. Hello, Betsy, and welcome to the Gen X Remix.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about our conversation today. I love when I get to meet other authors, other women who are helping change the world. But before we jump into all of that, I'd love for you to share your remix story with us.
Okay. So I was 31 and was working in the pharmaceutical industry in the Northeast. I live in Florida now, but I was in the Northeast working in a big pharma. I'd been in the corporate world for a decade after graduate school and had always spent, even before that job, that career, I was always in the healthcare profession, in internships, volunteering, that kind of thing. And in the course of a very short period of time, I was laid off. I was involved with a corporate restructuring and they laid off an entire division and I was in that division. And I found myself suddenly single with a 1 and 2-year-old daughters. And I was 31 at the time, 31, 32, and thought maybe God, source, universe was telling me I wasn't on the right path. And I think whenever you're hit with some life events like that, you do a lot of reflection. And then that's when I decided to pivot into something that I truly thought I would be passionate about. I was never passionate about the career that I was in. I was passionate about the benefits of the career, but I wasn't passionate about the career. And so I pivoted into real estate, which I had always had an interest in, dabbled in, had purchased homes and really loved that process and had been a part of rehabbing homes for the at-risk populations and just really liked a lot of things that real estate had shown me. And so I pivoted into being a realtor. And then after that, really just loved it and grew from there. I became a broker. And then once I had the brokerage solidified, I started adding other verticals. So I added title, I added a mortgage company, I added a real estate school, I added a property management company. And then I started my own nonprofit helping families that would never use our services in the front door. They couldn't afford them, but they needed housing. And so we've created a nonprofit that addresses the affordability housing crisis in our area. So that's kind of my short story of how I pivoted.
Oh my gosh. That's a great remix story. And I love just the fact that you listened to that God source universe power. So many times I find that we ignore it because it's not what we're supposed to do. It's not what you
Hmm.
should do. It's
Hmm.
the panic of, oh my gosh, I have two small children. I have to stay in this,
Hmm.
I say stable, but we all know it's perceived stable corporate world.
Yeah.
What was the thing that made you realize that it was going to be okay to make a pivot and you didn't need to keep running on that hamster wheel where you weren't 100% happy?
Well, I never would have done it had I not been faced with those two life events. So those were at the time very traumatic for me. But as we learn, as we get older, they are, our biggest fears and the things that are presented in our lives end up being our best, our greatest blessings. So I think it was just recognizing that, okay, what I thought was the safe route, in both in my marriage and in my job turned out not to be. And things that I felt like were totally in my control were not. And so I think it reduced the fear that I would have had to jump before. Because when you're faced with things that you just feel like so out of control, you realize how little we really do have control over. And like you just said, the perceived stability of a corporate job, where when you're laid off, it's like I knew I'd never fire myself. So that seemed, when I was faced with being laid off, I realized, wait a minute, working for myself seems so less threatening, because I knew I'd always have a job because I would never fire myself. And I was very confident in my ability to create value. So it seemed like a much minimized risk than it did prior to having those life events occur.
Yeah. I love everything that you're saying. And as someone who spent decades in the corporate world, I would hear it. I still hear it because I talk to a lot of women who are trying to get back into corporate after being laid off unexpectedly in their 50s at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And, the one thing I hear is like, well, I just need the stability. And I'm like, to help me understand that stability, it's really perceived stability. And yes, we need money. Yes, we need benefits. Yes, everything serves a purpose. But if you could do whatever it is that makes you happy,
Mm-hmm.
what would you really be doing?
Mm-hmm.
And in most cases, I don't hear going back to a corporate job.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's been an interesting journey over the past few years for me too.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the other
Um,
thing, I mean, I
Go
just
ahead.
would say,
Yeah.
I was very cognizant of the fact when I was in the healthcare industry and the pharma industry, I didn't see any woman over the age of 65.
Yeah.
And that always, even when I was in pharma, that always concerned me. But I knew a lot of entrepreneurial women that were much older than that, thriving. So I do feel like, sadly, we still face the age discrimination with our gender. And I feel like in the entrepreneurship realm, you don't have that. The
Yeah.
sky's the limit, especially in my industry where there's 85-year-old realtors killing it in my market, and
Exactly.
it's an industry where age works for us. So,
Yeah. You've got that experience, right? And that's the thing that I cannot figure out is why age isn't honored in every industry. I mean, I
yeah.
guess there's some that are more physical and maybe, our bodies just don't do the same things. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, the knowledge and the experience, you can't replace that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really wild to see the age discrimination that goes
Mm-hmm.
on, to your
Mm-hmm.
point, especially for women.
Yeah.
And I just read an article the other day that said the fastest growing number of people who are starting their own businesses are women over 50.
Oh, wow.
And I'm
Love
like,
it.
absolutely. We're building our own paths at this point. We're like, you know
Mhm.
what? That's fine. We'll take it over here and go do our
Yeah.
own thing. So
Yeah.
it's such a great inspiration.
Yeah.
As I was stalking you, as I do most of my guests, looking all over your socials and websites, and then also going deeper into your bio, one of the things you said is you felt like there was a point where you didn't really have the right to be unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that really hits home for a lot of women. One of the things that I say is it's okay to be grateful for what you have, but still want something more or different. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that because everything on the outside looks great that you're in the best place.
Mm-hmm.
Can you walk us through kind of what it took for you to get to that place of knowing that that you had the right to be unhappy and you had the right to make a change that worked for you.
Hmm. Um, well, and it's not something that I can say I've totally conquered. I do sometimes feel guilt about it. I think because I'm very aware, we work with homeless people a lot. I work with prisoners recently released from prison, prison women, and help them with getting financial skills. And so I see, I always, I know how blessed my life is,
Yeah.
and so that's where I struggle. But, for me, it got to the point where I can't spend the rest of my life. We're here for such a short period of time. I can't spend the rest of my life not being totally fulfilled. And I wasn't in the roles I was playing, and in these boxes I allude to a lot. Um, and so it was just a matter of internal pain, really forcing me to claim that and be okay with that.
Yeah. I think sometimes it gets so uncomfortable trying to walk the walk, trying to fit into that box that you or someone else has crammed you into,
Hmm.
that you finally just say, you know what, enough is enough.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I had read a excerpt from your story about how you were describing yourself as like one of those mattresses just crammed in a box, compressed by those expectations. So I know that you've lived that and you
Hmm.
felt that.
Hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of us do. I mean, I think it's just innate in the society that we live in. Um, and I think that I, for a long time, didn't even recognize I was in a box. You can't get out of boxes you're not even aware you're in, and that there's choices beyond what may be obvious. So it's been a journey, one I'm still on.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a bit about maybe just some shifts that you have found in yourself as you've been breaking out of these boxes and getting more comfortable with accepting that you deserve to be happy.
Hmm. Um, I think for me, the shift is being more in tune with, and this was hard for me because I came from a very cerebral family where emotions were not discussed, valued. They were shamed. My parents just didn't understand and didn't have that growing up. It wasn't modeled for them, so it wasn't modeled for me and my siblings. And so, if we did express or try to express a negative feeling, it was squelched. And so I learned very quickly to disconnect from that and to just ignore that and go right to what I think, not what I feel. And so it's been a real learning for me. I feel oftentimes, especially when I started this journey several years ago, back in kindergarten, learning essential skills on emotions and feelings. And I remember, you know, printing out the feelings wheel online just because it was such a whole new world for me, the vocabulary, and trying to identify in my body how certain things felt. And then, more importantly, trusting those feelings that because your body's going to tell you before your mind does. But I was so used to just bypassing that and going right to, what do I think? What do the facts tell me, not how I feel? And so that's been a huge shift for me. And it's been a very conscious one. I mean, I have an app on my phone. It's called How We Feel. It's a free app and it checks in with you multiple times a day. And you can pick the bubble that what bubble is best describing your feeling. And you can type in quickly what environment you're in, who are you with, and what are you doing. So you can start seeing the patterns and what makes you feel good and elevated and what brings you down. Um, so it's just really getting in tune with my body and trusting those feelings, and then addressing the feelings that are not positive, and healthily. And so that's been probably the biggest shift for me. And then also reconnecting with, and I've done this for a long while, but then filtering every yes through what I purport my values to be. Um, and that's been a very conscious effort and very enlightening. And I love that. So making sure that everything I do is in alignment with my values. And so whenever I say yes to something, I consciously say, Betsy, what are you saying no to? Because sometimes that's not obvious. But every time we say yes to anything, we are definitely saying no to several things. And is that worth the trade-off? So those are kind of probably the two biggest shifts for me in my journey in the recent years.
Oh, important shifts for sure. As Gen Xers, mostly who's listening, feelings weren't a thing. I'm like, I
Mhm.
think back, I'm like, we didn't have those in the 70s and the
Mhm.
80s.
I
If
know.
we did, I actually just met with an energy coach, a friend of mine, her name's Nicole, and did an energy session just to understand better what she does. And she said, you have like buckets of tears inside you. She's like, are you holding something in that is like hurting you and bothering you? I'm like, no, everything's fine. She's like, no, it's not. Like, I feel it. I feel the energy. What is it? I'm like, I don't cry. Like, nobody's giving me anything to cry about. And I surely don't
Mhm.
want them to now.
Yeah.
And, we were laughing about it, but, it's true. We didn't really have a place to let go of those feelings that were deemed negative or,
Mhm.
to speak out in frustration. It was
Mhm.
that led to punishment, which I tell you, even as an adult, a 54-and-a-half-year-old woman, I still sometimes will hold something in and I'll be like, okay, this is silly. You can say what you think and how you feel about it and then
Right.
move on. And people
Yeah.
always say, you're so outspoken. What do you mean you held that in? I'm like, well, I just, I needed a minute.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
it's our upbringing. And I think millennials and Gen Z, they've got it. Like they will
Oh,
tell
I
you how they
know.
feel. We've given them soft places to land, but we were
I
like,
know.
nope.
I know. I love it when I see like my own daughters, they'll tell me exactly how they feel. And and sometimes I'm sensitive. So sometimes it hurts, but it's like, I'm so happy that they feel so secure in themselves and our relationship that they feel that they can be honest and expressive. And so, yeah, I think it's missing piece in our generation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank goodness we passed on the better side of
Yes.
that in our children. And then the other thing you said is when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else and
Mhm.
taking time to reflect on that.
Mhm.
I don't think a lot of people really get that. And sometimes I think about, an event maybe I was invited to, and I'll say yes because I don't want to hurt someone's feelings.
Yeah.
Yet what's really happening is there's a reason I didn't want to go. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
not feeling, but I'm a super extrovert unless I'm tired. So when I'm
Yeah.
tired, then I'm like, oh gosh, what did I do? I don't want to see people. I want to just lay on the couch with my dog and
Yeah.
just breathe.
Yeah.
Um, what are some things or maybe some examples of times where you've said yes to something and made the conscious decision knowing you were saying no to something else?
Yeah. I mean, well, that one's a great one because I'm a diehard introvert and I used to say yes to everything, feeling like I had to. Um, I remember going to conferences and, when you go to these national conferences in our industry, they start at 7:30, 8 in the morning. They don't end until 10 o'clock at night. Well, if you do every activity. And I would feel like I had to say yes to all of it to get my money's worth, to learn, to network, to not be everyone else seemed to be loving doing this stuff and it would incredibly drain me. And so it's like, okay, if I'm saying yes to this, I'm saying no to myself and I'm saying no to who I truly am. And I need, even though other people don't seem to need as much recharging and alone time as I do, I need that. And so I felt like I was almost rejecting myself and who I innately was born to be when I said yes to those things. And for who? I mean, what was I trying to prove, And so now I'm so comfortable saying no. And because I'm saying yes to myself. And
I
that
love
feels so
that.
much better and so much more in alignment with who I was designed to be on this earth. And so um, that's one example that happens all the time. In fact, uh, the other day a guy called me and he's like, "Oh, I want to," he wanted to pick my brain. He's like, "I want to take you to coffee." And I said, "Well, I don't do coffees." He's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "I just don't do coffees. I wrote off coffees long ago. I wrote off business lunches long ago because they don't work for me. I don't like anything about them." And he was just like, "Oh my gosh, tell me more." And so I explained to him why. Same thing. It's like, I kept saying yes to those things. And there's so many things I don't like about that. I'm sure other people love it, but for me, they don't work. And he's like, "Well, what does work?" I said, "Come to my office. We'll talk for we'll talk for 20 minutes." And that's what works for me. And being able to be okay with saying that and not worrying about what other people are going to think of me if I don't do lunch meetings. I just don't.
Yeah. But you said it and you stood by it, which is amazing.
Yeah.
We worry so much about what other people think. And I've joked about it on past episodes. I say this to people all the time. Allegedly, we're the feral generation, but we're feral, except for we're always worried about what everyone else is thinking. I'm like, we're not
Yeah.
that feral.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to get to a point where, for me, when I use that example, when I'm really tired and I need to pull back,
Yeah.
it's better that I do that than it is that
Mhm.
I show up and be a
Yeah.
complete jerk because I'm
Yeah.
tired or I'm
Yeah.
snappy or I'm quiet. And then everybody's, well, why are you so quiet? It's like, I just don't
Mhm.
want to talk to you right now.
Yeah.
It's never the right
Right.
answer.
Right. Right.
So, yeah, saying yes to yourself, so
Yeah.
important.
Mhm.
So, tell me a little bit about the book you wrote, Breaking Boxes. I just downloaded it on Audible. I haven't listened, but really,
Yeah.
what inspired you to write the book, and
Yeah.
why is it important to women over 40?
Oh my goodness. So I wrote the book because I was in my late 40s and was feeling very discontent with my life, even though on paper it looked great. And that's what we talked about. It took me even a good year to even admit that to myself that I wasn't happy because I didn't feel like I had the right to be. But anyway, I went through several years of exploring that, and a variety of different modalities: journaling, meditation, yoga, bioenergetic work, EMDR, one-on-one therapy, and trying to uncover what it was that was creating this unhappiness. And the common thread was this feeling of confinement and being like you said, like the mattress in the box, just feeling so compressed and not being able to express or be who I wanted to be based on other people's attitudes, beliefs, opinions, whether it was based on my gender, based on the roles that I played in life, the good mom, the good wife, the good daughter, um, based on my religion, based on my peers, my family of origin. I mean, it's from so many different um, forces, external forces. And I started journaling and sharing those stories with others, and they would share their own stories, and they were stuck in getting out of the boxes that they were in. And so the book came about because of that, because my goal was to help one woman. If one woman read the book and saw the box, because there's so many different boxes, we don't even recognize the myriad of boxes that are presented to us because we don't even recognize that there's options outside of that box. So my goal was to help one woman see a box that they may not recognize that's in their life, that's impacting their life in a negative way, and help them exit that box. So that's how the book came to be.
Got it. Just helping one woman. That's what matters. That's what
Yeah.
keeps the force going.
Yeah.
So if someone's listening today and they are feeling a little boxed in,
Hmm.
but they're afraid to make a change, or maybe they don't really
Yeah.
understand the box and the boundaries,
Yeah.
what is a simple step they can take
Hmm.
to start moving forward and
Hmm.
pushing their way out?
Well, for me, it's one is the awareness, and for me that is those body exercises, getting in tune with how you feel, naming you can't change something if you can't name it. So name your emotions, your feelings. Right. I'm a big advocate of writing things down, and then moving in the direction that feels better. I mean, that's very simple. Move away from that which feels bad, move towards that which feels good, and then also understanding what is holding you back. And so that is usually a fear-based response, and recognizing what fear is it. And I have found it's usually either fear of failure. And that's a box, that is a box. That's a label we choose to place on outcomes, but we don't need to. So I wrote off fear of failure long ago. It truly does not exist in my life and in my companies, because I don't look at things. That's just not, it's not like it's not an option. It just doesn't even exist. When I look at an outcome, I say, okay, what's the worst that can happen? And the worst that can happen in anything is it's the outcome is not what I had hoped for. So I have to pivot. And if you've reached this age, we've all had to pivot when we haven't wanted to. So we know we can do that. And I'll have learned something very valuable that I get to take with me for the rest of this journey. And that's going to make me a better person. So that's worst case scenario. And research has shown time and again, worst case scenario happens 3% of the time. So that it's just not, failure just doesn't even exist. You're going to learn something great and you're going to have to pivot and strengthen that muscle. So that's it. I don't deem that a failure. So that I would work through in your mind if that's what's holding you back, this nebulous fear of failure. I think once you write it down, it looks very doable. The other fears could be fear of change. That's a big one. We are creatures of habit. Um, that one is truly a muscle that you can work. Um, the more you practice being uncomfortable, being like I truly feel like I am most uncomfortable being uncomfortable. And I purposely put myself in uncomfortable situations every day. I track it. So I make myself be in something uncomfortable at least once a day, because I know I'm working that muscle where my body is used to that kind of a response, and being able to um, be more secure in adapting to what is uncomfortable or what is unpredictable. It may just be as simple as I take an ice cold shower every morning, and that makes me utterly uncomfortable. But I do it because I know that my body is building up a muscle of resilience for times when I can't control the outcome. So that's something that anybody can work on if you're fearing unknown, change, uncomfortableness. And then the other set of fears is usually around fear of loss. So you're fearing either a loss of perhaps status if you make this move, or a fear of losing social connection, which that's a very real one. Anytime you make a move outside of a box, you're changing the game. It's like chess. You've moved a piece. That's going to threaten, make people uncomfortable. People are going to disagree. You are going to lose social connection. But you know that. We all know that. So I always say, shore up the social connections you need for your future version of yourself. There's always people there. So look forward and look for those connections, because you know you're going to lose some on the back end. A really big mental shift for me um, was understanding that social connections are not all meant to be for life. I used to be the kind of person who, if a social relationship ended, it was a failure. It was tragic. It was, what did we do wrong? Why isn't this person still in my life? But I read a wonderful book years ago, Dr. Henry McLeod's Necessary Endings. I don't know if you've read that book, but a phenomenal book about relationships are designed to teach us things about ourselves. And then once we've learned the lessons, then we move on. And they were completed. The relationship is complete. It didn't end. It's not this tragic, thing. It's a natural ending. And he relates it to pruning back a bush, and you have to prune back every year for new growth. And so you prune back your relationships for new growth. So that's a loss that you can intellectualize and understand, and then shore up those connections for your future self. And then the other loss is maybe perhaps, especially in career changes, is a loss of financial security. That was a big one when I was going through it 25 years ago. But I feel like nowadays that's not so much a threat for people because of the internet, the ability to work remotely, the gig economy, and being able to supplement your income. I don't know that that's as big a fear as it may have been,
Yeah.
decades ago.
I think it still exists a bit, especially, for the people who are suddenly out of a job that need to find something quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things with my program is avoiding that, is starting to build the business before you leave, because I
Mm-hmm.
know things are so much different on the other side.
Yeah.
And it takes time to work through that. I earned this salary for this long, and now if
Mm-hmm.
I own this salary, it's a
Yeah.
big mindset shift. And sometimes we tie our worth and our own value
Mm-hmm.
to that a lot more deeply than we realize. And so the boxes that you just shared are so helpful. I see a lot of fear. I see a lot of that, just kind of um, fear of relationships ending, that loss of connection, to your
Mm-hmm.
point. And I just actually had lunch with a friend that I've known forever, and we were talking about, how friendships have evolved. And, she was saying that since she's been retired, things have been different with a couple of these particular friends. And we were talking about it. And I said, well, they knew you when. they don't necessarily recognize the evolution that you've come through.
Yeah.
And there may be a little bit of a disconnect. It doesn't mean the love is gone. It just means that there are probably different people in your life now that are taking you to the next level, or you're taking them to that next level.
Right.
And, just share that I've experienced some very similar things, in corporate, all my friends were corporate because that's who I was with 24/7. It felt like. And then, as I started moving more outward, my connections started changing. I started realizing I needed more connections in my community. I needed more connections that were building businesses and succeeding, who could continue to motivate and also understood the journey. So would I ever say that the other people are not my friends anymore? No, I would just say that when we look at each other and we have lunch or whatever it is, we may not have the same things in common that we used to. And that's okay. So
exactly.
Love what you shared there. All right, Betsy. So I am sure a lot of what you shared has resonated with our listeners. I know it resonated with me. So if someone says, oh my gosh, I need to learn more, how can our listeners connect with you?
Sure. So I have a website, which is just my name, betsypepine.com. And then I'm on all the social platforms. My handle is Betsy Pepine.
All right. Easy to find. So we'll make sure we share those in the show notes so our listeners can connect with you.
Right.
What are some final words of advice or wisdom that you have for us before we go?
My favorite mantra is everything's happening for me, not to me. And that helps me through a lot of things. And I would just encourage people to feel that way. We're not victims. There's opportunities in everything that we're presented and confronted with in our lives, and positive things can turn from anything. And so having that kind of a mindset, I feel like moves you out of a fear-based mindset into something that's much more empowering and proactive.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that advice, as well as everything else you've shared with us today as you've told your story. We've really enjoyed having you here on the Gen X Remix and look forward to staying connected.
Thank you, Tabatha.
Have a great day, Betsy. Wow, that was a powerful chat. And I hope you really enjoyed Betsy's story. Her journey is a reminder that it's never too late and it's never too selfish to break out of the boxes that are holding you back. Be sure to grab her book, Breaking Boxes, on Amazon, or connect with her at betsypepine.com or on Instagram at Betsy Pepine. All of her links will be in the show notes. And hey, if you're ready to unpack your own corporate box and create something bolder, I've got you covered. Whether it's through my Corporate Escape Accelerator, my 6-month group program, or one-on-one coaching, I'm absolutely here for it. So be sure to send an email or book a call and download your free Corporate Escape Starter Kit. Let's get you unboxed and unstoppable. Until next time, friends, keep rewriting the rules, Gen X style. Take care.